The Galactic Academy of Cross-Species Peace stood like a shining jewel above the blue clouds of planet Valora. From orbit, it looked like a massive ring of silver and crystal spinning slowly to maintain perfect balance. It was the pride of the Galactic Council, a place where young beings from across the stars came to study together and learn how to build peace after centuries of war. Inside its long, glowing halls walked students of every shape and color imaginable. Some had scales, some had feathers, some had glowing skin or extra eyes. Each carried their own culture, history, and pride. Every year, the Academy welcomed new students from distant worlds, and each arrival brought excitement, but also fear of the unknown. This year was different. The Academy had accepted a new species that no one had ever studied with before. They were from a small, dangerous world known as Earth. The Galactic Council had long debated whether humans were too unpredictable to join the Academy. Their planet was called a death world, a place full of volcanoes, storms, poisonous creatures, and predators that hunted even at night. Yet somehow humans survived there. Even more surprising, they thrived. Rumors spread quickly among the students before the first day of class even began. "I heard their oceans are full of monsters," whispered a small, jelly-like being named Fawn. Another replied, No. I heard their own planet tries to kill them every day. Earthquakes, storms, burning sunlight, and they just walk through it." The older students laughed nervously, pretending not to care, but everyone was secretly curious. What kind of creature could come from such a place and still be calm enough to study peace? When the first day of the new semester arrived, Instructor Zareth stood tall at the front of the large glass-walled classroom. Zareth belonged to the insectoid Xylar race, his body covered in hard green plates that glimmered like emerald. His 6 black eyes blinked in rhythm as he spoke in a deep, calm tone. "Welcome, students, to Galactic Studies 101, he began. "This year, we have the honor of welcoming several new species to the Academy. You will learn about one another's worlds, minds, and traditions. But most importantly, you will learn respect." The class murmured quietly, antennas twitching, eyes blinking, fins rippling. Instructor Zareth tapped one claw on the holographic console and smiled slightly. "Let us begin introductions." One by one, the new student stepped forward. A tall reptilian from Dracos, a soft-voiced aquatic from the moon of Lore, and a crystalline being that shimmered like ice. Then finally the room lights dimmed, and the holographic display shifted to show a spinning blue-green planet. "Earth." "Next," said Zareth, his tone unreadable, "our first student from the human species." The doors at the back of the room opened with a soft hiss. A young human male walked in. He wore the same gray uniform as everyone else, though it fit him differently. Less like armor, more like something casual. His short brown hair was slightly messy, his eyes calm but sharp, scanning the room like he was measuring everything in it. He didn't smile too much, but his expression was relaxed, peaceful. There was no fear in his face, not even hesitation. "This is Cadet Ethan Ward," said Zareth. "He comes from Earth, located in the Sol system." Dozens of eyes, lenses, and other sensory organs turned toward him. The class went silent. Ethan simply nodded and said, "Hello. It's nice to meet everyone." A few students blinked, waiting for something else. A nervous laugh, a fumble, a show of fear under their gaze. But he just stood still, hands at his sides, as if being surrounded by strange creatures was perfectly normal. Instructor Zareth continued, "And now, our final new arrival this term, Cadet Rakar of the Karnak Dominion." The lights dimmed again. A heavy metallic sound echoed from the hallway before the door opened. The floor seemed to shake slightly under the weight of the next student. Rakar stepped in, easily twice Ethan's height, his shoulders broad and his skin covered in dark armored scales. 2 horns curved backward from his head, and his golden eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. He wore a combat harness even under his uniform, and each of his clawed hands looked strong enough to crush stone. The Karnak were known throughout the galaxy as born warriors, trained from hatchlings to fight in the endless wars of their empire. Most species feared them, and even the instructors treated them carefully. Rakar looked around slowly, his gaze landing on Ethan. The air seemed to grow heavier for a moment. The other students leaned back instinctively, watching closely. Ethan didn't move. His expression didn't change. He met Rakar's gaze with calm curiosity, not defiance, not fear, Just quiet interest, like a scientist studying a new creature. For a long second, neither said a word. Then Ethan gave a small nod. "Hey, nice to meet you." Ricard blinked once, taken aback by the human's tone. No trembling voice, no attempt to impress. Just simple politeness. He gave a low growl that might have been a greeting, then turned to sit at his desk, the floor creaking beneath him. The rest of the class relaxed, whispering to each other. "Did you see that? He didn't even flinch. I thought the Karnak could sense fear. Maybe humans don't have fear." Ethan sat quietly in the second row, pulling out his datapad. His heartbeat was steady. To him, this wasn't unusual. Back home, he had faced far worse things. Wild storms, wild animals, and nights when survival meant thinking fast and staying calm. Compared to Earth, this classroom was peaceful. Instructor Zareth watched him for a moment, then continued with the lesson. "Today we will review interspecies behavior standards and the concept of non-aggressive communication." The students listened, but their attention kept drifting to the human sitting silently among them. Ethan took notes neatly, eyes moving between Zareth's slides and the students' reactions. He seemed to notice every twitch, every movement, every sign of curiosity or fear. He wasn't judging them. He was learning. When the class ended, students gathered in groups to talk. A few approached Ethan, their curiosity stronger than their caution. A small feathered creature named Tiri fluttered closer, her wings shimmering in the light. "You're from Earth, right? Is it true your world is dangerous?" Ethan smiled slightly. "Dangerous? Yeah, I guess so. But you get used to it. What kind of creatures live there?" Another asked. "Do you have hunters like the Karnak?" Ethan thought for a moment. "Not like Rakkar, no. But we have animals that can be just as dangerous if you're careless. Snakes, bears, even insects that can make you sick if you don't stay alert." The students gasped softly, eyes wide. "And you live among them?" Ethan nodded. "Sure, they're part of the environment. You just learn how to respect nature and how to stay smart." Before anyone could ask more, a shadow fell across the group. Rakkar stood behind them, his large frame blocking the light. "You speak as if danger is your friend," he said slowly, his voice deep. Ethan turned his head calmly. "I wouldn't say friend, more like an old neighbor you learn to live with." Some students giggled nervously, unsure if Ethan was joking, but Rakkar just studied him in silence. There was no fear smell, no nervous movement, no submission. Only calm. Rakkar grunted and walked away without a word. The others stared after him, then back at Ethan, impressed. When the day ended, Ethan walked to the large glass observation deck overlooking the stars. He placed a hand on the railing and looked out at the glowing lights of distant ships passing by. For the first time since leaving Earth, he felt a sense of peace. He knew everyone was watching him, testing him. But that didn't bother him. Humans had always been watched, always tested, by their own world, by time, by everything trying to wipe them out. And yet humanity endured. Behind him, Instructor Zareth approached quietly. "You handled yourself well today, Cadet Ward. Few students face a Karnak without showing fear." Ethan smiled faintly. "Thank you, sir. Where I come from, showing fear doesn't help much." Zareth tilted his head. "And what does help?" "Observation," Ethan said simply. "Understanding what you're facing before it understands you." Zareth's mandibles clicked in what passed for a smile. "Wise words, Deathworlder. I look forward to seeing how you perform this term." As the instructor left, Ethan turned back to the stars. His reflection glimmered faintly in the glass, small, human, and yet full of quiet strength. He knew this was just the beginning. In a galaxy full of powerful species, humans were still considered weak. But soon they would learn the truth. Deathworlders didn't survive because they were strong. They survived because they refused to give up. And Ethan Ward, calm, quiet, and unshaken, was about to show the entire Academy exactly what that meant. Days passed at the Galactic Academy, and whispers about the new human continued to flow through the long halls of crystal and steel. Students from many races talked quietly whenever Ethan Ward walked by. Some were curious, some admired him, and some simply didn't know what to think. He was polite to everyone. He helped classmates with their data pads, shared notes, and even joined a few for meals. Yet there was always something different about him, something steady and unreadable. Ethan never raised his voice, never panicked, and never seemed afraid of anything. But for one student, that calmness was a challenge. Rakkar of the Karnak was not used to being ignored. His people were warriors, feared even in peaceful times. In the Karnak Empire, size and strength meant respect. Fear was power. And here in the academy, Rakar's size and claws made everyone treat him carefully. Everyone except the human. Every time Rakar tried to intimidate Ethan with a stare or a low growl, Ethan simply looked back with calm eyes, gave a polite nod, and went on with his work. To Rakar, that felt like a silent insult. The next week, during combat studies class, Instructor Zareth walked into the large circular training hall. The floor shimmered with energy fields that could simulate any environment, from desert dunes to icy plains. Today the program was set to neutral field. Zareth's voice echoed through the chamber. Students, today you will practice control and defense. Not every fight is about strength. Sometimes victory lies in patience. He turned his 6 eyes toward the group. We will begin with paired sparring. Partners will be chosen randomly. The students exchanged nervous glances. Some quietly hoped they wouldn't get Rakar. Others secretly hoped they'd see the human fight. The instructor's screen flashed through names. Cadet Thierry and Cadet Fawn. Cadet Lerna and Cadet Voss. Then he paused. Cadet Rakar and Cadet Ward. The hall fell silent. Rakar's golden eyes narrowed slightly, and Ethan simply nodded once. He stepped forward calmly, rolling his shoulders. Instructor Zareth spoke clearly. Rules are simple. Use only Academy-approved techniques. No lethal strikes. Stop when I say so. Rakar grinned, or what his species used as a grin, revealing sharp teeth. Understood. Ethan just replied, Yes, sir. The energy field adjusted to simulate a smooth stone floor. The countdown appeared in the air. 2, 1. Begin. Rakar moved first, fast and powerful. His heavy steps made the floor vibrate. His claws swept toward Ethan's shoulder with frightening speed, but the human wasn't there. Ethan had already shifted his weight and slid aside, letting the claws pass harmlessly by. He didn't attack immediately. He watched. He measured. Rakar snarled and charged again, feinting left then striking right. Ethan ducked under the strike, pivoted, and placed his hand against Rakar's arm, redirecting the momentum instead of blocking it. Rakar's balance broke for half a second. Ethan could have followed up, but he didn't. He stepped back, waiting. Students around the ring whispered, He dodged him. Rakar's missing every hit. How can he move that fast? Rakar growled in frustration. Stop running, human, fight. Ethan tilted his head slightly. You're attacking too wide. You leave your center open. That made Rakar's eyes flash in anger. He swung again, harder this time. Ethan caught his forearm, shifted his stance, and used Rakar's own force to throw him over his shoulder. The large alien hit the floor with a heavy thud that echoed across the hall. Everyone froze. Rakar blinked up at the ceiling, confused. He had fought hundreds of opponents, but none who used his strength against him like that. Instructor Zareth stepped forward, clapping his clawed hands once. Enough! Excellent display, both of you! Ethan stepped back and offered his hand to help Rakar up. Good match, he said simply. Rakar stared at the hand for a moment, then accepted it, pulling himself up. His pride was bruised, but deep inside, a flicker of respect began to form. As they left the training floor, other students crowded around Ethan. That was amazing, said Thierry, her feathers puffing in excitement. You didn't even attack him seriously. Ethan shrugged lightly. It wasn't about hurting him. It was about learning how he fights. You didn't even get angry, said Fawn, his jelly-like form wobbling. Most people panic when Rakar roars. Ethan smiled a little. On my planet, noise doesn't scare you after a while. You learn to stay calm. Later that day, Rakar sat alone in the dining hall. He pushed his food tray aside, staring at the table. The Karnak around him avoided eye contact. They had seen the match too. His claws tapped slowly. For the first time, he wasn't angry at losing. He was confused. He thought about the fight. The human hadn't mocked him, hadn't shown pride, and hadn't acted superior. He had fought with focus and respect. When Ethan entered the hall carrying his own meal tray, a few students whispered again. But instead of ignoring Rakar, Ethan walked straight to his table. Mind if I sit here? Ethan asked. Rakar looked up slowly. You want to sit with me? Ethan smiled slightly. Sure, you fight well. I could learn something from that. Rakar blinked. You want to learn from me? You won. Ethan shook his head. You have raw power and speed. But my training is about balance and control. Different lessons, same goal. Ricard stared at him for a moment, then gave a low sound, half a growl, half a laugh. "You're strange, human." "People tell me that a lot," Ethan said, taking a bite of his food. For the first time, Ricard didn't feel insulted. He felt curious. Over the next few days, something unexpected happened. Ricard began joining Ethan during training. At first, he called it observation. Then, quietly, it turned into actual practice. Ethan showed him how to read movement, how to use an opponent's momentum, and how to stay calm under pressure. In return, Ricard taught Ethan how to use strength wisely, how to apply power only when needed. Instructor Zareth noticed the change and allowed them to continue. Other students watched from a distance, whispering again, but this time not in fear. They were starting to see something new. Cooperation between a human and a Karnak. Something no one expected. One afternoon, while the class practiced teamwork simulations, the instructor created a scenario: a damaged starship drifting near a black hole. The task was to work as a group to stabilize systems and escape. Panic spread quickly among the students. The holographic field made everything feel real. The alarms, the spinning stars outside, the sense of falling toward darkness. "Everyone stay focused," Ethan said, stepping forward. His voice was calm and clear. "Ricard, hold the stabilizer cables. Tiri, check the oxygen levels. Phone, reroute power to the engines." Without realizing it, everyone followed his lead. His voice carried quiet authority, not through power but through control. Ricard lifted heavy cables with ease, his muscles straining. "Engines ready." "Good," Ethan said, pressing commands rapidly. "Now push power in sequence. 3, 2, 1, go!" The holographic ship roared as systems came back online. The black hole's pull weakened and the class escaped the simulation safely. When the program ended, everyone clapped and cheered. Even Instructor Zareth's mandibles clicked in approval. "Excellent coordination," Zareth said. "Cadet Ward, you handled pressure well." Ethan nodded. "Thank you, sir." Everyone did great. He turned to Ricard, who stood beside him, breathing heavily but smiling for the first time. "Nice work," Ethan said. Ricard gave a slow nod. "You give orders like a commander, but without shouting." Ethan chuckled softly. "Shouting doesn't help in chaos. Thinking does." That night, as the lights dimmed across the academy, Ricard found himself staring at the stars from his room window. He remembered how he used to believe fear controlled others but Ethan had shown him something else. Calmness could be just as powerful. He thought about the human's eyes, quiet, steady, never blinking even in danger. There was no arrogance there, only experience. A kind of strength that came from surviving hard places, not from being born powerful, Ricard muttered to himself. Maybe that's what a DEATHWORLDer really is. In the next room, Ethan looked out at the same stars, unaware of Ricard's thoughts. To him, the day had been simple. Another lesson, another small step toward understanding others. But to everyone else, the human was becoming something more than a mystery. He was becoming a leader, and though tension still lingered, one truth was slowly spreading through the academy. The DEATHWORLDer didn't need to roar to be strong. He just needed to stay calm, and that calmness changed everything. Weeks passed at the Galactic Academy, and Ethan Ward's calm presence continued to surprise everyone. His classmates had grown used to his quiet way of speaking, and his habit of thinking before acting. Even the instructors had started to rely on him during group activities, but not everyone felt at ease. Ricard, the Karnak warrior, found himself unsettled. He had trained his whole life to be fearless, but now he was beginning to question what fear truly meant. Every time he saw Ethan move through the halls, unbothered and steady, Ricard wondered if maybe fear wasn't about danger at all. Maybe it was about control. One morning, Instructor Zareth announced the next phase of their training. His voice echoed through the large briefing hall, his many eyes glimmering in the blue light. "Today," he said, "you will experience a survival test. Each team will be sent to a simulated planet environment. The goal: survive, cooperate, and return safely. The conditions will be unpredictable." A low murmur spread through the students. Survival tests were known to be difficult. Some simulations were hot as lava fields. Others were freezing wastelands. Zareth's claws tapped on his screen. Teams will be assigned randomly. Cadet Ward, Cadet Ricard, Cadet Tiri, and Cadet Fawn, you will form one team. Ethan nodded calmly. Raykar looked at him, half proud and half wary. Tiri, the small feathered alien, flapped her wings nervously. Oh no. Why do I always get the hard missions? Phone, the jelly-like student, bubbled quietly. At least we have the human. He never panics. Moments later, the team stood inside the simulation chamber. The floor glowed beneath them as the holographic environment loaded. In seconds, the room transformed into a rocky world with thick gray clouds swirling above. Lightning flashed in the distance and the air smelled faintly of metal. Simulation start, said Zareth's voice from above. Survive for 6 hours, the wind howled. The ground trembled slightly beneath their boots. Tiri shivered. It looks dangerous. Ethan looked around calmly. It's not too bad. The ground is stable and the storm's far away. We should find shelter before it comes closer. Raykar frowned. You act as if you've done this before. Ethan smiled a little. On Earth, storms like this can last for days. The key is to stay calm and move with a plan. He led the way toward a ridge that looked solid enough to climb. Raykar followed beside him, still suspicious but listening. Tiri and Fawn stayed close, trusting the human's confidence. As they climbed, the wind picked up. Sharp dust whipped against their suits and the clouds above grew darker. Suddenly a flash of lightning struck nearby and the sound of thunder rolled like a roar. Tiri screamed, ducking low. We're going to get hit. Ethan turned to her. No, we're fine. The lightning striking the taller rocks first. Stay low, keep moving. Even Raykar felt uneasy. The storm felt alive. But Ethan kept walking, eyes scanning the landscape with careful focus. His calmness spread to the others, easing their panic. When they reached a shallow cave, Ethan signaled for everyone to go inside. We'll wait out the worst of it here. Phone settled in, his form trembling slightly. How can you be so calm, Ethan? This feels real. Ethan looked at the storm outside, watching the flashes of light. Because panic doesn't help. Fear is natural, but it only controls you if you let it. Raykar crossed his arms. You talk about fear as if you've mastered it. Ethan shook his head. No one masters fear. You just learn to live with it. The storm raged for hours. The wind screamed through the rocks and the cave shuddered. At one point, a loud crack echoed. Part of the ridge collapsed nearby, shaking the ground. Tiri yelped again and even Raykar stepped back instinctively. Ethan quickly moved forward, checking the cave walls. It's okay. The structure's still solid. But we'll need to move once the wind weakens. Raykar stared at him, finally asking the question he had been holding in. How can a creature from such a small world be this calm? My people are warriors. We've trained all our lives to suppress fear. Yet when danger comes, my heart still races. You act like it's just another day. Ethan smiled faintly. Because it is. Where I come from, danger isn't rare. Every person on Earth grows up learning how to face something scary. Storms, wild animals, even our own mistakes. You stop seeing fear as something to fight. You start seeing it as a tool. Raykar frowned. A tool? Ethan nodded. Fear tells you what matters. It warns you when something's real. But if you let it control you, you stop thinking clearly. The trick isn't to erase fear. It's to make it work for you. Raykar stayed silent, thinking. For a long time, the two sat side by side in the cave, listening to the storm's fading growls. When the wind finally began to calm, they stepped outside. The landscape had changed. The storm had ripped apart the ridge, leaving broken paths and debris. They started their return journey toward the simulation beacon that marked the extraction point. But halfway through, they heard a sound, a faint cry for help. Tiri's feathers ruffled. That's another team. They followed the voice and found two students trapped under a fallen metal structure. Part of the simulation's crashed ship debris. One of them, a crystalline being, was stuck badly, unable to move. Raykar tried to lift the beam, but it was too heavy. It won't move, he grunted. Ethan crouched down, studying the angle. We can't lift it directly, but if we use those broken poles over there, we can make a lever. Phone rolled forward to help. I can slip under to support the middle. Working together, they built a makeshift lever and used it to raise the beam just enough for Tiri to pull the trapped students out. Got them. Tiri cried, helping the injured one stand. Raykar exhaled heavily, amazed. You think fast, human. Ethan shrugged. That's survival. The planet doesn't wait for you to think slowly. The rescued students thanked them repeatedly before limping toward the beacon. By the time Ethan's team reached the extraction zone, the simulation timer ended. The storm faded, and the holographic environment dissolved into the smooth silver of the training chamber. Instructor Zareth appeared on the platform, his mandibles clicking in approval. Excellent performance, Team Ward. You remained calm and worked together under pressure. Especially you, Cadet Ward. Your leadership kept the team stable. Ethan bowed his head respectfully. Thank you, sir. Everyone did their part, Thierry beamed proudly. We would have panicked without him. Raker said nothing at first, but when Zareth turned away, he stepped closer to Ethan. His voice was lower than usual. When you talk about fear, it almost sounds peaceful, Ethan smiled. Maybe it can be. Once you stop running from it. That evening, Raker couldn't sleep. He sat by the academy window, staring at the twin moons outside. His mind kept replaying Ethan's words. Fear tells you what matters. He thought back to his own training on the Karnak homeworld. His teachers had beaten fear out of their students, forcing them to fight until nothing scared them anymore. But that never worked. Fear always came back in the middle of battle, quiet but heavy. Ethan was different. The human didn't fight fear. He carried it like a companion. That made him unshakable. In the morning, Raker approached Ethan in the cafeteria. Other students looked surprised. It wasn't common for a Karnak to speak first. I've been thinking, Raker began slowly. Your people call your planet a death world, right? Ethan nodded, sipping his drink. That's what the council calls it, yes. Raker tilted his head. Then every child who grows up there must learn to survive from birth. Pretty much, Ethan said. Sometimes it's not about fighting. Sometimes it's about thinking or building or helping others when everything goes wrong. Raker grunted softly. That's why you didn't fear the storm. Ethan looked at him curiously. You didn't fear it either. You just didn't know you didn't need to. Raker blinked, surprised by the words. And then slowly he smiled. Later that week, Instructor Zareth called the class together for a review session. Every species learns differently, he said, pacing across the room. The lesson of fear is one most forget. It is not an enemy. It is a teacher. His eyes turned toward Ethan. The human has reminded us of that. The students clapped quietly, and Ethan looked slightly embarrassed. Raker leaned toward him and whispered, You see what you've started, Deathworlder? Ethan grinned. Just a little learning. But deep inside, Raker knew it was more than that. Ethan hadn't just taught a lesson. He had changed how they all saw fear. And somewhere in the galaxy, news of the calm human from the death world began to spread through whispers and messages. A simple student had done what no warrior could. He taught killers, soldiers, and scholars alike that courage wasn't the absence of fear. It was walking through it without blinking. The Galactic Academy had settled into its rhythm, and the students were busy learning, practicing, and exploring the wonders of interspecies life. Yet even as life returned to its usual pace, the memory of the survival simulation remained vivid. It was not just a lesson in endurance or teamwork, it was a lesson in calm. A lesson that spread quietly through the corridors like a soft hum. Ethan Ward had become a figure that others noticed without realizing it. He did not seek attention, did not boast, and did not raise his voice. He simply acted, observed, and led when needed. And slowly that simple presence earned the respect of those around him. Even Raker, the once intimidating Karnak warrior, began to change. It started during one of the Academy's weekly combat drills. The students were sent into the arena, a massive space filled with holographic obstacles, shifting terrain, and simulated adversaries. Today's lesson, Instructor Zareth announced, is strategy under pressure. Each pair will navigate the arena to capture the target flag while defending their team's position. Ethan's group was paired with Raker again, Thierry, and Fawn. Others looked on, murmuring quietly. Many wondered what would happen if Ethan and Raker worked together, or clashed. The arena lights dimmed, and the simulation began. Raker immediately ran forward, using his brute strength to charge through the holographic obstacles. Ethan followed behind calmly, observing the path and analyzing the layout. Wait, Ethan said, raising a hand. You're moving too fast. The traps ahead will hit you before you reach the flag. Rakar's claws scraped the ground. I don't have time to think, he shouted. You do if you survive, Ethan replied, his tone calm and even. Let me guide you. For the first time, Raker hesitated. Then he slowed, watching Ethan's calculated steps. Together, they navigated the traps. Rakar using his power at the right moments, Ethan using strategy to avoid danger. By the time they reached the flag, the other teams were scattered or struggling. Ethan carefully coordinated their retreat, signaling Tiri and Fawn at every step. Even Rakar's usual impatience melted into obedience. When they returned to the start point, Instructor Zareth clapped his claws together. "Remarkable work. Cadet Ward, your leadership combined with Cadet Rakar's strength made the impossible possible." The students around them stared. Murmurs spread through the hall. The human and the Karnak worked together? He didn't even flinch under pressure. This changes everything. After class, Rakar followed Ethan into the hall quietly. "I don't understand," he admitted. "I'm supposed to be the strongest. I should lead." Ethan glanced at him. "Strength alone doesn't always work, Rakar. Sometimes it's about thinking first, acting second. Sometimes it's about helping others survive, not proving you're the strongest." Rakar's golden eyes softened slightly. "I've never seen anyone fight like that. Without anger, without showing off, you just act." Ethan shrugged. "That's how humans survive on Earth. We don't always fight to win. Sometimes we fight to live, to protect, to keep moving. Anger doesn't help. Thinking does." Rakar exhaled a low growl, half frustration, half respect. "You are strange, human, but I think I understand you better now." A week later, the Academy faced an unexpected challenge. A group of rogue space pirates attacked the outer sectors of Violora, infiltrating Academy grounds using stealth technology. Alarms rang across the campus, red lights flashing and warning sirens echoing. Students panicked. Many ran toward safe zones while others froze in fear. The instructors rushed to intercept the intruders, but some areas were left vulnerable. Ethan heard the commotion and moved quickly to find his team. "Rakar, Tiri, Fawn, stay with me. We need to protect the students in the lower halls." Rakar followed instantly, recognizing Ethan's calm authority. Even the normally nervous Tiri felt steadier walking beside him. The lower halls were in chaos. Holographic screens were shattered and several students huddled in fear. Ethan assessed the situation quickly. "Phone, keep the doors sealed. Tiri, guide the students to safe rooms. Rakar and I will block the intruders." Rakar nodded, placing himself near the nearest hallway. Ethan moved calmly, scanning the corridors. When a pirate appeared, cloaked and wielding a plasma blade, Ethan didn't hesitate. He dodged the attack and used the environment to disarm the intruder, all while remaining calm and measured. Rakar joined him, covering larger threats and physically blocking attacks. Together, the human's strategy and the Karnak's strength created a seamless defense. Within minutes, the intruders were surrounded and incapacitated. The students cheered quietly, still in awe of how calmly the human and Karnak had handled the chaos. After the danger passed, Instructor Zareth appeared, mandibles clicking in approval. "Cadet Ward, Cadet Rakar, exemplary performance. You both acted with courage, precision, and leadership under extreme stress." Rakar looked at Ethan, breathing heavily. "You fight like a killer." Ethan shook his head. "No, I fight like someone who refuses to lose anyone else." For the first time, Rakar truly understood the human perspective. Strength was more than muscle. It was courage, patience, and the will to protect others. In the days that followed, Ethan's presence changed the dynamic of the academy. Other students began seeking his advice during drills. They watched how he remained calm, how he assessed dangers, and how he helped others without showing off. Even Instructor Zareth noticed. "Humans," he told the class during a lecture, "may seem fragile compared to other species. Yet they carry within them the strength of endurance, resilience, and adaptability." Cadet Ward is a prime example of this principle in action. Students whispered among themselves. The quiet human from Earth, a DEATHWORLDer, had earned their respect not through intimidation or aggression, but through calm leadership and clever thinking. One afternoon, Ethan walked with Rakar across the academy gardens. The twin suns were low in the sky, casting long, soft shadows across the crystalline plants. "You're changing things here," Rakar said quietly. "The other students? They're starting to listen. They're starting to follow your lead, even without force." Ethan smiled faintly. "I'm just showing them what works. It's not about me. It's about survival and learning." Rakar shook his head. "No, it's more than that. You've earned respect, not fear. That's rare among the strongest of our species. You make us want to follow not because we must, but because we believe it works." Ethan nodded, letting the words sink in. Maybe that's the difference between a fighter and a survivor. Fighting is about winning. Surviving is about making sure everyone lives. Ricard grunted softly. You may be from a tiny, dangerous planet, but you've shown me strength I've never seen before. Ethan smiled lightly. Strength comes in many forms. Sometimes it's quiet. Later, as the day ended and students returned to their rooms, Ethan paused on the observation deck of the academy. Stars twinkled in the vast expanse of space, distant planets glowing softly. He breathed slowly, letting the calm settle over him. Ricard appeared beside him, silent for a moment before speaking. You didn't just survive here. You've taught others how to survive too. Ethan tilted his head. I only show what works. Others decide whether to follow. Ricard chuckled low. I think more are following than you know. Even I am. Ethan looked at him, smiling faintly. Good. Then the galaxy will learn that humans are not just survivors. We are teachers, and by example. For the first time, Ricard didn't feel the need to roar or intimidate. He simply stood beside the human, calm, learning, and seeing the power in quiet courage. As the twin moons rose above Vialora, the Deathworlder and the Karnak warrior looked out over the academy. One had survived storms, predators, and chaos beyond imagining. The other had strength no human could hope to match. Together they formed a combination that others had only begun to understand. And the galaxy, for the first time, was starting to notice. The semester at the Galactic Academy was drawing to a close, and a quiet excitement filled the halls. Students were preparing for the final evaluations, a combination of combat, survival, and strategy tests that determined not just grades but respect among peers. Ethan Ward, the human from the Deathworld, moved through the corridors as usual, calm and observant. Though his reputation had grown over the past months, he did not seek attention. Other students whispered about him, watched him, and sometimes followed his advice, but Ethan paid little mind. To him, the work was never about recognition. It was about learning, surviving, and helping others do the same. Ricard, once his rival and now a trusted companion, walked beside him. The Karnak had changed too. His perspective on strength and fear had been reshaped by the human. Where he had once relied only on power, he now respected observation, strategy, and patience. Together they formed a bond stronger than any rivalry. One, built on mutual respect and understanding. The final evaluation began in the massive arena of Unity, a circular hall with walls that could change their environment in seconds. Today the test was a combination of simulation and live strategy. Holographic enemy units, traps, and obstacles would challenge the students, and the goal was to work as teams to complete complex missions without losing any members. Instructor Zareth's voice echoed through the arena. Cadets, today's final evaluation will test every lesson you have learned. Courage, strategy, teamwork, and calm under pressure will be weighed. Survive, succeed, and return together. Let the evaluation begin. The floor shifted immediately, revealing a simulation of a rocky alien planet, jagged mountains rising into stormy skies. The students' eyes widened. The terrain was treacherous, and dangerous creatures roamed within the holographic simulation. Ethan's team of 4, Ricard, Tyree, Fawn, and himself assessed the environment quickly. Listen, Ethan said, his voice calm, carrying authority without anger. The creatures here move in predictable patterns. We'll use the terrain to our advantage. Ricard, you'll take point and hold them back. Tyree and Fawn, stay behind me and follow my signals. We move together, no one gets left behind. Ricard's golden eyes narrowed. Are you sure? This terrain looks impossible. Ethan shook his head slightly. Nothing is impossible if you stay calm. Remember what the planet taught me. Panic is the true enemy. The team moved carefully, avoiding the creatures and navigating the jagged rocks. When a large holographic predator appeared, Ricard roared and leapt forward, blocking its path. Ethan calculated the angles, guiding the predator toward a trap he had noticed earlier. The creature tripped, giving them a clear path forward. Other teams struggled in comparison, panicking at every simulated threat. Students fell behind, their strategies failing, but Ethan's team moved as one, calm, precise, and efficient. When a section of the ground collapsed under a heavy load, trapping Fawn momentarily, Ethan didn't hesitate. He analyzed the debris, directing Tyree to use leverage with a nearby rock. Within seconds, Fawn was free, unharmed. Rakar watched in amazement. "You see the way everything fits?" "Like a puzzle," he said quietly. "I never knew strategy could be this fast, this precise." Ethan glanced at him. "It's not magic. It's patience and observation. Most species fight without thinking. We survive by thinking first." Halfway through the evaluation, the team reached the extraction zone, a platform high above a simulated lava pit. But a final challenge awaited them. A group of holographic enemies activated, charging toward the students from multiple directions. "Hold the formation," Ethan shouted calmly. "Rakar front, Tiri left flank, Fawn right flank. Follow my lead." For several tense minutes they fought and maneuvered together. Ethan calculated every step, every attack, every retreat without panic. Rakar blocked and struck. Tiri used her agility to dodge and distract, and Fawn supported with quick movements and assistance. Finally, with a precise maneuver, Ethan led the team to the extraction platform, activating the beacon. The simulation ended. The students around them stared in awe. Instructor Zareth stepped forward, mandibles clicking in approval. "Cadet Ward, your calm leadership and tactical thinking ensured no members of your team were harmed. Cadet Rakar, your strength was enhanced by strategic guidance. Together, you demonstrated what true teamwork and courage mean." After the evaluation, the students gathered in the Academy's Grand Hall for the closing ceremony. The room was filled with cheering and applause, and Ethan found himself at the center of attention, though he remained quiet, letting others speak. Rakar stood beside him, no longer a rival but a friend and ally. The other students approached, asking questions, sharing praise, and seeking advice. Many admitted they had once feared the human, thinking his calmness might hide weakness. Now they understood the truth. Strength comes in many forms. Instructor Zareth raised his claws to speak. "This term all of you have learned much about courage and survival. But one student, Cadet Ethan Ward, has reminded us that the greatest strength lies not in raw power, nor in fearlessness, but in calm, disciplined courage. He shows that humanity, even from a small, dangerous planet, can survive and teach others how to endure. Let this be a lesson to all." The hall erupted in applause once more. Ethan nodded politely, a small smile on his face. Later, Rakar spoke privately to Ethan away from the crowd. "I fought countless battles in my life. I thought strength meant crushing your enemies and showing dominance. But you've shown me another way. Patience, calm, and focus. That's strength too." Ethan shook his head slightly. "It's not about showing strength. It's about knowing when to act. That's how humans survive. Not by fighting every challenge, but by understanding it and facing it wisely." Rakar's golden eyes glimmered. "I understand now. Humans are more than survivors. They're teachers, even without trying." Ethan smiled faintly. "We just survive long enough to learn, Rakar. And when others follow the example, they survive too." In the days that followed, Ethan continued to assist students quietly. He helped Tiri with navigation techniques, advised Fawn on problem-solving during simulations, and even shared small lessons with Rakar about patience and observation. The Academy itself began to view humans differently. Messages circulated among instructors and students alike, recounting stories of Ethan's calm under pressure, his leadership, and his uncanny ability to read situations others could not. He became a symbol, not of fear or aggression, but of resilience and quiet power. One evening, Ethan stood on the observation deck once more, watching the stars sparkle above the planet Velora. Rakar joined him, silent for a few moments. "Do you ever get tired?" Rakar asked. "Of always being calm, of never panicking?" Ethan considered the question. "Sometimes. But where I come from, panic doesn't save anyone. Thinking clearly does. You learn to use your fear as a guide, not a cage." Rakar nodded slowly. "I wish more warriors understood that. You've changed me, Ethan, more than you realize." Ethan's eyes reflected the stars. "Then you understand why humans survive. We don't give up, we adapt, and we learn from every challenge. That's what being a DEATHWORLDer means." At the end of term ceremony, the Academy awarded special recognition to those who had demonstrated exceptional courage and leadership. Cadet Ethan Ward received the honor, not for his strength, not for his victories, but for his unwavering calm and ability to inspire others. As the crowd cheered, Ethan glanced at Rakar, Tiri, and Fawn. He knew this was only the beginning. The lessons of courage, patience, and teamwork would continue far beyond the Academy walls. Ricard leaned toward him. You didn't just survive here, Ethan. You've shown everyone that being human, even from a dangerous world, means something greater. You've reminded us all that strength comes in many forms. Ethan smiled faintly. I didn't do it alone. Strength isn't just mine. It's in everyone who chooses to face challenges without giving up. And as the stars shone above the Academy dome, Ethan Ward, the quiet human from a death world, stood not as a soldier or a killer, but as a teacher, a survivor, and a friend to the galaxy. Even in a universe full of powerful species, his example would never be forgotten, because humans, the Death Worlders, didn't just survive. They endured. They adapted, and they showed the galaxy what courage truly meant.